There is a moment, every fisherman who has ever worked the Amazon rivers knows it, when the water changes. Not the color, not the current, something underneath. A stillness that is too still, a silence below the surface that does not belong. Michael had been fishing this stretch of river for years. He knew its moods, its rhythms, its dangers. But on this particular morning, the water gave him a warning he almost missed. Almost. Michael's mornings begin before sunrise. While most of the jungle is still in darkness, he is already on the river. Fishing is not a hobby here. It is not a pastime. It is survival. The river is his market, his refrigerator, his only reliable source of protein. He knows this stretch of water like he knows his own hands, where the current slows and fish gather, where the deep holes are dark, cold water, where large fish rest during the heat of the day, where the fallen trees create shelter and feeding grounds. He sets his lines with the quiet efficiency of someone who has done this 10,000 times. 3 lines, different depths, different bait. The morning was ordinary, the river was calm, the air smelled of rain somewhere far upstream. And then the first line went tight, not with the slow pull of a fish, but with something else entirely. The pull was wrong. Michael felt it immediately, not the steady resistance of a fish fighting the hook, but something frantic, something urgent. He looked at the other 2 lines. Both had gone tight at the same moment. In 20 years on Amazon rivers, he had never had 3 lines go tight simultaneously, not once. He looked at the water around the canoe. The surface was moving, not from wind, not from current, small disturbances scattered across a wide area, as if dozens of things just below the surface were agitated, circling, feeding. And then he saw the first flash of silver just beneath the surface, then another, then too many to count. Piranhas, a large school, and from the movement of the water, from the behavior of the lines, from everything his years on the river had taught him, they were already feeding. Most people fear piranhas because of stories, because of films, because of the image of skeletons stripped clean in seconds. Michael feared them because he knew the truth, which was both less dramatic and more real than the myths. A school this size, in a feeding frenzy, would not attack a healthy adult human unprovoked, but provoked, disturbed, cornered. If blood entered the water, the calculation changed completely. And right now, his fishing lines were inside their feeding area. His bait was drawing them. His canoe was sitting directly above hundreds of fish in a state of extreme agitation. He needed to get the lines out of the water, carefully, without creating sudden movement, without breaking the surface violently. He reached for the first line. That was when something large hit the canoe from below. The impact was not violent. It was a single heavy thud, like a log hitting the hull from below, but there were no logs here. The canoe rocked. Michael grabbed both sides. One of the fishing lines snapped. He looked at the water. The school had tightened. The surface was now broken in a wide circle around the canoe, the water churning white in places, the piranhas so dense near the surface he could see their bodies clearly. Something had disturbed them from below, something larger than piranhas, a large catfish perhaps, driven upward by the feeding school, or something else. Michael did not wait to find out. He cut the remaining 2 lines with the knife he kept at his belt. Clean cuts, no hesitation. Losing the lines meant losing the bait, losing the hooks, losing hours of work. He didn't care. He picked up the paddle. Paddling through a piranha feeding frenzy requires the opposite of every instinct demands. Every instinct says, paddle hard, move fast, get away. But fast, violent paddle strokes break the surface. They create noise and vibration. They draw attention. Michael paddled slowly, deliberately, each stroke as smooth and quiet as he could make it, pulling the canoe forward without disturbing the water more than necessary. He could feel the school beneath him for the first 30 meters, the slight vibration through the hull, the sound, a sound most people never hear, of hundreds of fish feeding just below the surface. Then, gradually, the vibration faded. The surface around him calmed. He paddled another 50 meters before he stopped. He sat in the canoe and breathed. He sat there for a long time, not shaking, not panicking, just sitting with what had happened and letting it settle into the part of him that stored these things, the part that had grown larger with every year he spent in the Amazon. He had lost 3 lines, 3 hooks, a morning's worth of bait, and he had no fish to show for it. He looked at his hands, steady. He was proud of that, not because fear was weakness. Fear had probably saved his life this morning, but because the ability to act clearly inside the fear, that was what the jungle had taught him. That was what 20 years in this place had built. He looked back down the river at the stretch of water where the school had been. The surface was calm now, completely calm, as if nothing had happened. That was the Amazon. It did not remember. It did not apologize. It simply continued. He paddled back to the cabin slowly. There was no rush now. The morning's fishing was over. He would eat what he had from the day before, dried fish, some fruit he had found yesterday in the forest. It would be enough. As he tied the canoe to the dock, he noticed something he hadn't seen on the way out, a patch of the riverbank where the mud had been disturbed, large marks, recent, pressed deep into the soft soil. Caiman tracks, a large one from the size of them, moving from the water into the forest and back. The caiman had been here this morning, while he was on the river, while the piranhas were feeding. In the Amazon, danger rarely comes from one direction. He looked at the tracks for a moment, then he picked up his gear and walked inside. That afternoon, Michael sat outside the cabin and made 3 new fishing lines, slowly, carefully, the way he made everything, with attention, because attention was the difference between something that worked and something that failed when you needed it most. He thought about the piranhas, about the school, the size of it, the speed at which the situation changed from routine to dangerous. People who had never been to the Amazon imagined it as a place of constant visible danger, predators everywhere, threats at every step. The truth was different. The Amazon was mostly quiet, mostly beautiful, mostly generous with the person who paid attention and respected its rules. But when it shifted, when something changed in the water, in the air, in the behavior of animals, it shifted fast, and the person who survived was not the strongest or the bravest, it was the person who noticed first. The next morning, Michael went back to the river, not to the same stretch, not right away. He paddled upstream to a section he knew well, slower current, shallower water, no history of large feeding schools. He set his new lines carefully. He watched the water, and by mid-morning he had 4 fish in the basket, enough for 2 days. The Amazon had taken his lines yesterday. Today it gave him breakfast. That was the agreement, the only agreement that had ever made sense to him out here. You respect it, you learn from it, you come back, and most days, it lets you. If this story made you hold your breath even for just a moment, write "Deep Jungle" in the comments below. Michael's river is full of things most people will never see, and every morning he goes back to it anyway, because that is what this life requires. Not courage without fear, but movement despite it. Subscribe to keep following his story, because the Amazon is not done with Michael yet.